The Ravens have one of the most talented offenses in all of football. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews. But the Ravens also learned a valuable lesson these last few seasons, and none of these weapons matter as much as they should. If you aren't winning up front, you cannot have the success that you desire. Because as great as Lamar Jackson is at escaping pressure, you don't want your quarterback constantly having to be Superman. As powerful as Derrick Henry is, you don't want him getting contacted before he can even build momentum. In the last 2 years, the Ravens took a gamble with the offensive line. They went cheaper, they went younger, they tried to develop these linemen, and it did not work. That's why one of the most important developments of this entire offseason is the Ravens rebuilt the interior of their offensive line. They brought John Simpson back to play left guard. They used the 14th pick in this year's draft to draft Vega Ioane, who's going to play right guard for years to come. They went out and hired Dwayne Ledford, a coach Jesse Minter described as one of the league's top offensive line coaches. And now, just before training camp, the Ravens add Ethan Pocic, a veteran center with 97 career starts. These moves should not be taken lightly. The Ravens upgraded the interior offensive line and have quietly fixed one of the biggest holes on this roster. You don't need to watch a compilation of bad plays or blown blocks to know that the Ravens' offensive line struggled consistently last year, especially at the guard spots. Left guard and right guard, Andrew Voorhees, Daniel Fa'alele did not have great seasons. It kind of crumbled the entire Ravens offense along with injuries, but Lamar wasn't as protected as he should be. You know, the running lanes weren't as open as they should be because the interior offensive line was struggling so much. And you never really heard John Harbaugh admit it, or even Eric DeCosta. You know, he's not specifically ever calling out players, but teams reveal their evaluations through their moves and through their actions. And by the Ravens going out and completely transforming the interior offensive line and getting 2 new starting guards, that reveals their thoughts and evaluations of last season. I don't need to hear it directly from their mouth. Their moves told everything. Let's talk about the first major piece that the Ravens added to the offensive line, and that was John Simpson in free agency. And the Ravens are very familiar with John Simpson. He was the starting left guard for the Ravens in 23 when they went to the AFC Championship, and they know what they're getting with John Simpson. So I don't think that this is much of a risk. You know, they had John Simpson here in 23. The Ravens had an incredible season in 23. Fall short to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship 17-10. Obviously wish things would have went different, but there's some unfinished business there. And then John Simpson cashes out in free agency and goes to the Jets and starts for another 2 seasons. So he gets 2 years of starting experience at left guard. And then the Ravens go out and pay him $10 million a season to come back. And John Simpson brings physicality. John Simpson also already has chemistry with a lot of these guys. You know, he played next to Ronnie Stanley in 23. You know, he has chemistry with Lamar Jackson. This is a familiar face that the Ravens know what they're getting, and I think it has a very safe floor that is above the guard play that we had last year. And not to just keep dunking on Andrew Voorhees, he's going to still be competing for that spot and developing under new coach Dwayne Ledford and this entire new coaching staff. I don't think that Voorhees is an awful player. He's just not ready to be the Ravens starter on a Super Bowl caliber team. I think John Simpson is. He's proven that in 23 when we went to the AFC Championship. So upgrading at left guard by getting John Simpson and then now also having Andrew Voorhees as your backup just creates a very nice floor for this Ravens team. Even if there is an injury, God forbid, the Ravens have great depth at that position now. And then the Ravens go make an even larger investment at right guard by drafting Vega Ioane from Penn State at pick 14. 14th pick in the draft is a guard. That tells you something right there. That is a massive investment. This is going to be one of the foundational pieces of this Ravens offensive line for years and years to come. And during rookie minicamp and OTAs and minicamp, Vega was running at right guard. So that's what tells me that he's probably going to start at right guard. John Simpson will be the left guard because that's where he's played. He also has talked about it's tougher for a veteran to switch sides than it is a rookie rookie because Vega played left guard in college, but transitioning him to right guard immediately kind of speeds up that learning curve. And, he obviously has some things to learn and some footwork to change being over on the right side, but doing it immediately when he comes into the league makes it a lot easier for him to be able to transition than John Simpson, who's been starting at left guard in the NFL for years. So I think that's how it's going to play out. John Simpson at left guard, Vega at right guard, and it's massive upgrades. The Ravens upgrade from Daniel Fa'alele, who's not even on this team anymore. He went to the Giants with John Harbaugh in New York, to Vega Ioane, expected Pro Bowl player to plug in and be a foundational piece of this offensive line. It is a massive investment. It is a massive upgrade, and it's at the perfect spot because the Ravens offensive line has been one of the holes and weak points of this roster for a few years now, and they're not playing around, man. They went out and addressed it.
The mentality that I'm not trying to get beat. Nobody's going to touch my quarterback, and as simple as that.
But even after adding John Simpson and Vega Ioane, the Ravens still had a big hole on this roster because they lost their Pro Bowl center in Tyler Linderbaum, who cashed out in free agency with the Las Vegas Raiders, got $27 million a season, which just blew the center market out of the water. The Ravens reportedly offered Tyler Linderbaum $22 million a year, so they were willing to even invest further in this offensive line and keep Tyler Linderbaum here, but he took $27 million a year with the Raiders, and I get it. But I also get why the Ravens didn't pay him $27 million as well, which is just way, way above any center that's ever been paid in NFL history. So the Ravens had a big hole at center, and all offseason we're talking about the center competition. We got Danny Pinter and Jovan Gwynn that we signed in free agency. We got Corey Bullock still here, who was competing last year, but he just had offseason surgery. And then you got undrafted free agent Nick Dawkins from Penn State, who played next to Vega Ioane. They were all competing and were the options at center, and still are there obviously as options for center. We'll see how training camp plays out, but none of those guys have much starting experience. Danny Pinter led that group with 10 career starts. And this competition is by no means over, but the Ravens were clearly not super comfortable with the current center competition because they just went out and signed Ethan Pocic, who was recently playing for the Cleveland Browns and has 97 NFL career starts, a proven starter in this league. He is coming off an Achilles tear in December, so that's definitely a wild card to be thrown into this equation, but he is cleared to go. I expect to see him at training camp, and it's probably Ethan's job to lose because he has by far the most experience. He has size. He is a great pass protector. This is an incredible opportunity for Pocic to come in and win this job. It's an incredible signing by the Ravens to be able to find a center with this much starting experience at this point in the offseason, and the Ravens have been sniffing around this Ethan Pocic deal. They had him in for a visit in May, so they obviously were looking into this. They knew that this was one of the options, and they went out and got him once he was cleared to play, and I think it's a massive move. Is he Tyler Linderbaum in his prime? No, but you got to look at the contract that Tyler Linderbaum got and then evaluate the contract that Ethan Pocic got to determine whether it was worth it or not. And Ethan Pocic is making $3 million with an opportunity to make up to $1.5 million in incentives. And $3 million versus $27 million is a massive difference. You really have to take the contract into consideration here. And then you have to look at the totality of the offensive line with the upgrades at left guard and right guard around the center position. I don't think it's even a debate that the Ravens have upgraded their entire offensive line collectively. And the players are going to receive most of the attention as they should, but one of the biggest offensive line upgrades that isn't a player is Dwayne Ledford. This is one of the best offensive line coaches in the entire league. He was recently with the Falcons. He has played center himself before in the NFL and is going to really increase the development because last year the Ravens did not develop their offensive linemen well. We were expecting a lot of these young guys from 24 coming into 25 to take a leap, and they regressed. They went backwards. Nobody really got better. And I think that is definitely about to change with an entire new coaching staff, obviously, but specifically Dwayne Ledford, who has consistently got more out of his guys where he's been than expected. And the Ravens have talent there as well. So I'm expecting this new coaching staff to lift and develop these young guys. It's also great news for Andrew Voorhees, who's probably the backup left guard right now. It's great news for Emory Jones Jr., who's going to be a versatile backup, for Carson Vincent, who's a versatile swing tackle. Like, these linemen are all going to get a lift. You know, who knows what the long-term vision of the Ravens offensive line is. We do have Ronnie Stanley, who's aging. John Simpson might not be here for 5+ years. You know, Ethan Pocic probably won't be here for 5+ years. So the Ravens are going to have some turnover again. And I think it's so important that you find a way to develop the younger guys so that you constantly do have a pipeline of talent. And I think the Ravens have the depth there and the coaching to develop these offensive linemen behind this upgraded starting unit. And it's just so obvious and so exciting that the Ravens have really honed in on upgrading this offensive line this offseason and fixing one of the weakest points of this entire roster these last few years that really does hold the team back. You know, Lamar Jackson has been running for his life. He hasn't been able to trust timing. He's been injured. You know, Derrick Henry's getting hit before he even gets going. He's getting hit on the goal line. I mean, how many times last year were we on the 1 or 2 yard line and we couldn't run it in with Derrick Henry? That is just mind-blowing that you have to get super creative because you can't actually win at the line of scrimmage. I think those days are over, and I'm excited about it. Let me know what you guys are thinking about this offensive line as it stands before we head into training camp. Are you feeling better about the center room after the Ethan Pocic signing? Do you think he wins the job? What do you think about this offensive line heading into this season and this team overall, the upgraded coaching staff? Let me know what your thoughts are. Appreciate you guys tuning in to another episode of Sleeper Ravens. Hit that subscribe button. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you guys next week.